Hi guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be covering about the entire textile space. Entire textile space will be covering a part of that value chain, which is those companies that are taking this raw material cotton and converting them into yarn and fabric. Okay, so this is first or the part one of the value chain. If you haven't caught up with that video, catch up with it so you can understand, the linking between the different segments in the textile space. Okay, so the first part, like I told you, जो भी yarn या fabric बना रहे, there are a couple of companies. I think there are around 10 to 12 companies over here. I'm going to try and cover as much as I can. Let's say where the companies where there is no growth, where the management is crying in the con call, where they're telling the demand is not good and they can't see anything good happening in the foreseeable future. Then it makes no sense to be covering that in the video. I think we'll try to do as much as companies, where there are things happening good. In this way it is efficient for me to make videos on that, and also I don't want to waste both of our times doing that. Okay, so in today's video, in this whoever is making this, converting this cotton to yarn and fabric, we will be covering two companies. One is Nitin Spinners and the other one is Vardhman Textiles. So we'll have to see whatever the tailwinds that we're seeing from this Bangladesh effect that is happening, are they really going to get benefited from that? Okay, so first of all, if you look at Nitin Spinners, let's understand the business model. It is very simple. Whatever the raw material cotton that is there, you convert into yarn or you convert into fabric and you give it to these companies. Let's say the B2B companies that are there, right, which manufactures garments, you're supplying it to them. They are your customers. Okay, now if you look at their revenue bifurcation, you see that 77% of their revenue comes from converting this cotton to yarn. So yarn contributes 72% of the revenue, and the fabrics that is there. So after you convert the cotton to a yarn, you get this dhaga na, that dhaga gets converted into fabric. Okay, which is basically आपका, you would see na in that tailor ka dukaan या आपका raw material ka dukaan, you go and you get this 100 meters ka satin and everything. So this fabric that you call different fabric, you make cotton ka fabric, polyester fabric and all of that. Fabric contributes around 22.1%, and the rest is others, basically some kind of scrap you could be selling. Okay, now if you look at their in terms of the geography, if you look, majority comes from export contributes 64%. So whatever the yarn, the cotton, the fabric that they're making, they're selling it to maybe some in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, US, wherever it is. Okay, and the other rest 36% comes from the domestic market, which is the Indian market. If you look at this company, they have around two plants, both situated in Rajasthan itself. Now let's talk about the main thing over here. Let's talk about the numbers. Q2FY25 ka numbers kaisa raha. If you look at the numbers, if you look, sales is up by 11.5%, and PAT that is there, PAT is up by 33%. Sales are hardly double digit, little bit higher double digit, say it went up 11.5%, but PAT jo hai went up by 33%, and EBITDA margin that is there, it is at 14 versus 11.2. Okay, अगर आप इसका volume growth देखते हो, now it is very important whenever you're looking at this yarn and fabric जो है, to look at the volume growth यहाँ पे, right, because that is where you make a lot of money. Because आपका value growth, there isn't any value growth left over here. Because see, how will this company get value growth? Like, it is basically a function of how your commodity, which is your raw material, it depends on that. अगर cotton का prices बहुत नीचे रहा and you are selling it, obviously you bought cotton at a lower inventory, then you can pass on that, you get that benefit due to that price difference. Again, at the same time, let's say cotton का price या cotton का भाव बढ़ते ही जा रहा है, right, then what will happen? आपका थोड़ा margins पे pressure आएगा, right? So over here there is not much of a pricing power, like I told you. So the entire thing comes from one thing and one thing only, which is your volume growth, right? So you have to check, let's say अगर इस साल उन्होंने इतना यार्न्स जो है, इतना प्रोडक्शन किया है यार्न्स का, अभी प्रीवियस साल कितना किया. सो इफ यू लुक एट दैट, द वॉल्यूम ग्रोथ अगर आप उनका यार्न के लिए देखते हो, इट इज अप बाय 17%, और आपका फैब्रिक्स के लिए देखते हो तो इट इज अप बाय 34%. ओके, सो नाउ यू कैन टेल कि लाइक व्हाई इज दिस, वी आर सीइंग दिस मार्जिन का भी एक्सपेंशन हो रहा है, एंड यू आर आल्सो सीइंग दैट एज अ रिजल्ट यू आर सीइंग कि लाइक ऑपरेटिंग मार्जिन तो यहाँ पे बहुत है. सो द मेन रीजन फॉर दैट इज, वन, देयर हैज बीन अ लॉट ऑफ कॉस्ट कटिंग ओवर हियर. व्हेन आई टेल कॉस्ट कटिंग, यहाँ पे see, how do I put this, a company may not may try to reduce the price by probably like saving on their electricity bill, not paying their employees, and this is exactly what has happened over here. If you look at their company, they have been venturing into a lot of this green and renewable energy, thoda solar energy, wind energy, ये सब use करे अपना plant में. As a result, they've got a lot of benefit, उनका expenses थोड़ा कम हो रहा है, and that is why they're getting this entire benefit of operating leverage. Okay, So not much happening in terms of like, and if you look at their plants also, plant is also running at almost full capacity only. So nothing much left over here. Now the main problem comes over here is in raw material ka price. Raw material mein kya ho raha hai? How is the pressure and how is the demand looking like? If you look at them na, वो बोल रहे कि like raw material अगर आप देखते हो, now what has happened, this is a very common narrative in the entire आपको cotton industry जो है yarn and fabric बनाने के लिए उनका raw material is cotton. This is a very common narrative you hear across everybody, is that see what has happened is जो आपका अमेरिका में है, ब्राजील में है, all of these cottons they are higher cotton. We call this higher cotton मतलब आपका quality is very good, so we call this as primary cotton. Okay, and the cotton that you get in India, although it is as good, they are of good quality, but they are not at par with the quality that you get from this abroad. Okay, now if you look at America, Brazil, all these different countries that are there, the cotton ka prices have fallen way below. It is cheaper, for them to get cotton from America, Brazil versus let's say in India. India ka cotton mein kya hua hai, there is a minimum selling price that you have, right, for cottons, which the CCI, which is a regulating body, that sets it. Now what has happened is all of this time the cotton ka prices that were there, it was trading below that MSP. So now you understand raw material ka prices itna kam tha, as a result bhi unka thoda operating leverage mila hai. Now coming forward in the Q2 and in the coming, now they're seeing as the when the, because the con call happens in Q3 ka months, now they're telling you like cotton ka prices that is there, it is trading at MSP. Okay, one of the reason was that. But having said that, even though the cotton ka prices are trading at minimum selling price, although there is no inflation in your raw material, the cotton that you get from India is still expensive than the cotton you get from America and the other countries. But having said that, they can't import these cottons. Why? Because again the main problem यहाँ पे import में क्या हो रहा है, in India there is a lot of this taxes that is there, right? Import ka taxes is so high, especially when you're importing from cotton and all. It makes no sense for them. Ultimately a tax ab डाल के then it becomes expensive. Now what has happened, obviously think about it, the other parts of the world where they are able to source this, where they are able to source this America cotton and everything, they are able to sell their products at a cheaper price now because unka raw material ka price is coming. Now here, although you're trading at MSP level, minimum selling price, it is still expensive. Now you understand कि like यहाँ पे दिक्कत क्या होने वाली in the upcoming quarters that is there. The other thing, the most important thing is demand. How is the demand looking? Now, when you talk about the export market, like I told, they sell it to Bangladesh, they sell it to America, Europe and everything. They see that the demand that is there is not really that great. It is very subdued, okay? One of the reason is, as you know, Bangladesh में यहाँ पे थोड़ा ज़्यादा से आता है export. But having said that, right, in Bangladesh, the things that are happening, a lot of people are moving out of their manufacturing facilities. So you have to sell it to the manufacturer who's making all your tops and everything. Now, let's say if the customer is moving their manufacturing from that place to some other place, you're losing your client. Now, your client is not able to manufacture clothes. As a result, even you won't be able to sell them yarn and fabric jo bhi ho, right? So that is another thing that is happening over here. So other than this, there is no capex, there is no plan for, a lot of margin expansion. Whatever margin expansion you see is because of, like I told you, it depends on the cotton price. It depends because, you're shifting to all this green energy. As a result, aapka margins jo hai, can even inch up to even 20%, Always ask yourself, like, yeah, I know a lot of people get excited like oh, margins expand ho raha hai, so it must be a good thing. But you need to always question like everything. Whenever a good thing happens, ask and question like why is it happening, what is the source behind it. Now यहाँ पे अगर आप देखते हो Nitin spinners का margin is getting expanded. How? Because they're going to save on cost and everything, not necessarily because the volume growth is coming, because all the plant is running at almost at maximum capacity only over here. So for you to get that additional volume growth, you have to do some sort of you have to do some sort of capex, which there is nothing in the books over here for now. Okay, in fact the company has also told ki like आगे जाके expect an 800 crore ka run rate, probably a 10 to 15% ka growth, like hardly 10 to 15% ka growth. Now you tell me 10 to 15% का growth है, and on top of that आपका raw material में इतना कुछ चलता रहता है कि like you tell me if it is valid or not. And even they're telling कि like कि like भाई इतना सारा demand का problem है, we do not know कि like क्या होगा, कैसे होगा. Some, and you also know, right, अभी क्या हो रहा है कि like in the entire textile space, because this dumping is so much, आपका wastage इतना होता है, आपका pollution इतना होता है इस textile space से, manufacturer से. Now all of these countries, especially in the Europe and in the America, what they've done is now whatever clothes you do, you have to make it from the recyclable material. They're putting a ban on import also over there for the customers. So what is happening, if you're making it from cotton and everything and it's not a recyclable material, from that, then again aapka like the adaptation to new technology is getting tougher for them. So over here, as much as you can see that the tailwind is immense in terms of this entire Bangladesh problem, you do not necessarily see this getting translated, at least to Nitin spinners for that matter. And for the entire year, I mean, we can track and see probably if they start getting more orders from the domestic space, maybe then we can track and see. But as of now, nothing great happening over here overall, right? The only thing they're hoping for, कि like ये Bangladesh का जो भी problem है, that gets solved out, the demand gets better, cotton ka prices probably, it becomes as equal as, what is happening in America and Brazil and the other parts of the world. So a lot of crying in the con call, I would say, and it's a good like 10 to 20% का growth engine, right? That is what it is. And like I told you, capex पे उतना कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. They're looking for capex. They have an idea कि like, capex probably in Rajasthan they're looking, because Rajasthan ka government, they're giving a lot of incentives and schemes. There could be a possibility, but again, no scene. And this, like I told you, you can expect a 10% kind of growth for the upcoming year, FY24 versus FY25. But having said that, this also is dependent, because 36%, like I told you, is coming from the domestic market, and domestic market ka, demand is getting better and better. So probably, Q3 and Q4 festive season and everything, from that they're hoping for it. But that is that. Overall, like I told you, not much happening. It totally depends. Even the upcoming quarters, even that 10% can growth depends on the domestic demand if it goes well, because export ka demand utna kuch ho nahi raha yahan pe, and the cotton ka prices becomes a very very big important factor. ठीक है. So Nitin, spinners ये हो गया. Now coming to the part, the second company that we're doing is Vardhman Textiles Limited. Now Vardhman Textiles Limited also same thing, same business as you have with Nitin Spinners. They do yarns, they do fabrics, all of, they convert the cotton to yarn and fabric. The difference over here is in terms of the geographical mix. If you look at Nitin Spinners, we saw 34%, 34 to 36% comes from domestic and the rest from export, right? Almost 64% comes from export. Versus over here, if you look at Vardhman, the export and domestic का mix, that is the geographical mix, if you see 50-50 है, domestic से भी 50, export से भी 50 है, ठीक है. Now here if you look at them यहाँ पे, they have different, other than the क्या बोलते हैं, other than the yarn and fabric that they make, they have a very very small, very abysmal part of the revenue coming from making garments. Okay, like I told you, again you will have to watch that first video that I made to understand the value chain. There are different players. One जो yarn और fabric बनाते हैं. Second, the second player is will buy this yarn and fabric from here and will make this fabric into a finished product like a top, shirt, pant, sweater, कुछ भी. The third player is जो ये who will source from these people, अपना brand का नाम चिपका के they will sell it in their showrooms. So now over here most of the players are either yarn and fabric. It is very few people who are manufacturing, converting this yarn and fabric into आपका finished clothes. Now what this Vardhman Textiles have done is they have started manufacturing shirts, because see, they already have yarn, they are already making yarn and fabric. Now all they have to do is employ these tailors to convert that fabric into a finished good item. Now this is a very abysmal, like I told you, very very small part of revenue, because 98, 99% of the revenue actually comes from making your yarn and fabric. Even in that 90% comes from making yarn only. So like I told you, the garment is a very small part of the revenue. But having said that, ये garment में ही ज़्यादा demand है, because बांग्लादेश में क्या रहा है, बांग्लादेश में those people are involved in making a value added product. They convert this fabric into a top, and those people, Bangladesh people, also source this fabric and all from China because it is cheaper for them, right? So that is why they're saying is garment में demand है. But having said that, उनका yarn या cotton business में उतना कुछ हो नहीं रहा है. They are facing the same kind of issues that Nitin Spinner is facing. The same cotton का prices के issue, the fact that demand is not really great, export में उतना कुछ problem हो रहा है and everything, ठीक है. All of that problems they are facing. In fact, they continue to tell कि like जो period है हमारा Q1 and Q2, it was a very challenging period, and we do not see that probably we do not see a light at the end of the tunnel, at least in this year, that things are getting better. It continues to be challenging as of that. Okay, now in spite of, like I told you ना कि like यहाँ पे जो है they are having how do I put this? They are having that garment sector that they're having. Now over here, although they have the demand, they can't increase the production over here. They can't increase the capacity. Now why is that the case? Is because number one, if you look at Bangladesh ka the manufacturing cost is very low. Okay, and no supplier is willing to pay them this pay them the price what these people are asking, because like I told you, India mein if you look for an individual per month you're paying for a tailor $250, whereas over there in Bangladesh you're paying $120 to $140 per month. Think about the price difference that is happening. Who would want to do that, right? So that is one problem. The second problem that the garment sector that has in India is a garment is a very very अनऑर्गेनाइज स्पेस, ओके। एंड यहाँ पे बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है इन केस ऑफ योर लेबर, बिकॉज आई टेल यू दिस, because again my mom ka factory, they are involved in manufacturing clothes for all these big brands that are there, the foreign brands that are there abroad. Now if you look at them, the main problem that even my mom's factory faces, it's a very common fact, is all these workers that are there, right? First of all, you have to be a skilled worker, because the clothes that you make, यहाँ पे it is not कि like जो आपका टेलर बनाते हैं, in गली गली में जो टेलर होता है, it is not like that, because यहाँ पे everybody is a fast fashion space and they have a certain kind of quality. You have to make it very very fast also, right? So and there is a certain process कि like एक cutting division, maybe if you look at it ना, एक क्या बोलते हैं, एक one person will do only one type of cutting, okay, that is there. Second is यहाँ पे कि like these you need a skilled worker, ठीक है. The other thing is all of these workers that are there, they come from this T2 T3 गांव का लोग आते हैं, या वरना ये immigrant workers जो है, जो बांग्लादेश से या various other places से, they come from there. Now problem with all this immigrant या T2 T3 cities का workers क्या है, they have all this farmland and everything in their गांव्स, okay. And farmland में अगर आप देखते हो, let's say for example most of these people come from this northeastern part, from this Calcutta, Bihar and all. वहाँ पे ये उगाने का season, the harvesting, not उगाना, harvesting season you call it, I don't know what you call harvesting season in Hindi, but harvesting season happens in your later half of the year, in October, November, December. आपका in the monsoon season, July, August and all, since it is raining, you can't do a lot of work in the farms also. So what these people do for that first 6 months of the year, they come, they get the job. They tell ki like, हाँ ma'am, I will work for 1 year, 2 years, they will tell. But immediately when they know that things are getting better in their farm, they leave this job. Abruptly they leave the job and they will go, ठीक है. So labor का बहुत issue होता है यहाँ पे, ठीक है, because you do not know कि like when this labor will go, what will happen, that is one thing. Because and these people are not bound by contract or anything, okay, like they are like aa jao, work karo, go. It's like more like freelancing only, you can tell. So this becomes a very big issue, availability of labor and a labor ka problem. Third kya hota hai, it becomes very difficult for you to like put them in a certain thing, is because these people don't have that PF, OF, all of the schemes, so it makes them stick to a certain job also. So this becomes a very very huge challenging part over here, and the government really needs to intervene and try to regulate this industry and everything, because these people are getting minimum wages. Actually they're getting more minimum wages than any part in the world, right? So that is one thing. But again, one is the prices are very high, and the second is the fact that none of these laborers that are there, you can't really fix them to a, or you cannot trust on them for a long period of time. And having said that, nowadays what has happened is the state government is trying to give them PF, they're trying to give them that ESI ka scheme and everything, okay. But again there is another problem over here. Who are giving these schemes? People, probably the Karnataka government or somebody over here there hai, right? But North India ka koi, Delhi ka government there and all these schemes. But jo workers hai, they are from that Tripura, Assam, in that areas, yeah, varna from very interior part, so. And this scheme is done in such a way that only if you are a member, aapka like if you are a member of that particular state, like you belong to a certain state, then only it is valid over here. So the companies are like are bhai, aap to government is doing all this scheme, but it is still invalid, kyunki like why would that, because he is coming from Tripura, he can't avail this scheme over here, so why would he, he wouldn't again be bound over here, right? So a lot of problem over here in this garment industry for them. That is why they can't push that space where the demand is really good. And जो yarn और fabric में है, वहाँ पे demand उतना कुछ अच्छा नहीं हो रहा है. I think this was a one such company, I'll tell you, जहाँ पे they didn't face any issues with the Bangladesh ka environment. They told कि like जो volumes वो लोग last quarter भेज रहे थे, they're sending the same volumes right now. But having said that, probably little bit interest they're seeing from customer side, to shift it to India. ठीक है. Now other than that, let's talk about the sales. The sales जो is up by 4% and PAT up by 44% on a year-on-year basis. Now you understand with all the companies that are there, why in spite of, now you understand कि like why it becomes very important कि like जब एक textile sector कोई भी sector में boom आता है, why you have to look at individual company. You can't look at कि like अरे textile में boom है, let's say electronics में boom है, and then you start buying every company. Just because एक sector में boom आ रहा है doesn't mean that every person in that sector, every company in that sector will do well, right? And I think both Vardhman Textiles and Nitin Spinner is a very good example कि like one, they're not able to be as beneficiary of that tailwind that we are seeing in the textile space. The second that we see over here, the biggest thing over here is the demand for them. See, because you could be any kind of company, whatever company you are, ultimately agar aapka product ke liye if there is no demand, you're good for nothing. And these people are like, I'm literally telling you, these people were, I mean, the management was like literally crying in the con call as to like, like there is no demand, the demand is subdued, back and back. I think probably this line you'll hear like 100 times in all this textile, especially in this yarn and fabric wala space. Okay. Other than that, these people are planning to do a capex, because यहाँ पे same situation के like all of their capex is, most of the companies are running at maximum capacity utilization. So they're spending around 2,500 crore on capex. It will be done over 2 phases, and the first phase the first phase will be ready by FY26 in September October, and from this plant I think they will be able to make 15 million metric tons or meters of clothes they will be able to make, I think. So but having said that, you think about this, I think the main problem here, you could be doing capex again, comes into one. See, we learned so many things in this video. One, we realized कि like first you have to understand कि like margins क्यों बढ़ रहा है. If a company's margins are expanding, because उनका volume growth ज़्यादा हो रहा है, value growth आ रही है, या शायद कुछ product mix change हो रहा है, probably they're selling a higher margin product, because of which profitability बढ़ जाते हैं, which we saw happen in Vector Foods, very long back. They went from selling normal biscuits to cream वाले biscuits, जिसमें margins थोड़ा ज़्यादा है, ठीक है. वहाँ पे वो product mix हो गया, and along with product mix, what did Vector Foods do? They started expanding from north of India to south of India. So वहाँ पे क्या हुआ, volume growth आ गया, distribution आ गया, as a result उसका margins बढ़ने लगा, and you saw the stock went from 400 to 1500 1300 that time, ठीक है. So that is one. But here margins कैसे why are you seeing the margins expand over here, is because of one thing and one thing only. One, they are getting a lot of benefit from this cotton prices, their inventories, that is there. The second thing is these people are shifting to all this solar energy, wind energy, because of which unka expenses jo hai is getting cut down from the previous year to this year. So this is one thing. So margin expansion ka reason समझो. The second thing, what did we understand कि like ये लोग जो demand है यहाँ पे कुछ भी हो, they could be doing XYZ thing. I mean, let's say a textile sector या space जो इतना कुछ demand है, but it is not necessary that every player in this textile space will get benefited from here. So this is what we saw in Vardhman Textiles and Nitin Spinner कि like demand है, tailwind है, but the fact that the product, it is in such a way, the nature of the business is such a way that they are not able to benefit from the demand, at least as of now. Okay, this is the second thing. The third thing what we are learning, capex. Now another thing very very important, we always try to jump the gun कि like अरे capex हो रहा है कि like wow, he's आगे जाके revenue बढ़ेगा and everything. But having said that, it is good a company does capex, but there is always a but when investing. Understand this, it is not necessary that every capex that you do will add on to your revenue. Over here these people are doing a capex that is really good, but having said that, अगर यहाँ पे demand नहीं होता है, you will be sitting with an empty plant at the end of the day. आपका revenues नहीं आएगा, order नहीं आएगा, तो plant रख के भी क्या फायदा. So good, यहाँ पे capex हो रहा है, that is good. Having said that, but what is the problem यहाँ पे? I would be very interested in a company जिसका शायद इस capex से top line में कुछ changes आने वाले, शायद demand इतना अच्छा है इसलिए वो capex कर रहे हैं, but यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हो demand नहीं है फिर भी capex कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, right? So आगे जाके शायद there is a higher possibility, higher probability that this capex can be a null capex. I'll give you another example over here where capex is not necessarily a good thing. I'll give you 2 examples, okay? One capex is RSL Gatek. Okay, I remember this RSL Gatek because again this was one of the bets that I played. RSL Gatek का अगर आप देखते हो, they saw demand इतना अच्छा था post COVID. What they did, they went and did the capex. They knew that उनका order book है, उनका आने वाले. They were very very short confident about it, and then they did the capex. Capex आने की वजह से क्या हुआ, उनका product mix वहाँ पर भी change होने लगा. They started shifting into a higher margin product, right? उनका volume growth आने लगा, asset turnover हो गया, and as a result you saw the ROE went up from 13% to 25%. Okay, that is one example. The second example I'll give you, Bharat Wires and Usha Martin. This was back in 2019 2020. All of these people started doing a lot of capex. Okay, वहाँ पे इतना capex करने लगा, but demand got turned. Okay, आपका tailwinds बन गए headwinds. आपने इतना सारा and right, all these capex are not small capex. जब आप wire ropes बना रहे हो इतना बड़ा capex होता है, demand का पूरा शिफ्ट हो गया यहाँ पे, and they are left with so much capex, and they've taken so much debt, for all this capex. Entire company got sloshed. They had to come, they had to divest. Usha Martin had to divest their steel ka business separate करके उसको बेच के debt चुकाना पड़ा. Bharat Wire, still they had to make a really good debt restructuring plans with the bank and everything. A lot of problem had happened. And again in 2020 ka cycle, when things started getting better for them, that is when they were totally able to come out of it. But that period of 2 years was miserable for those companies, and even probably even more misery for investors that were stuck in over here. So understand over here, capex, you are doing a capex, it's okay, but is this capex going to be fruitful, especially when this demand is not, that becomes a question mark over here. So overall, both these companies, again, not too much happening in the textile space. Okay, so this is, I will cover only these two. Already 25 minutes ka video ho gaya. Agla video mein I will cover some other companies who are in this yarn and fabric space. Okay.